Hey, at least let me enjoy it for a minute.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
Hey there, I'm Infuso, and this is yet again another video about me talking about some obscure show that either everybody's already forgotten about or nobody knew about to begin with. So before I even ask this question, no, it's rhetorical and I already know the answer, not that I could hear you answer it anyway. But do you guys remember way back when MTV actually played music videos? Yeah, no, me neither. What I do remember, however, is MTV creating a shitload of content I myself personally loved, and was heartbroken to see it continually be taken before its time. Wrestling Society X, The Hard Times of RJ Berger, which I do intend on talking about, Celebrity Deathmatch, but I think the one that stands out the most, for me at least, the one above the rest, is MTV's own Spider-Man, the new animated series. And that just might be because it seems like everyone else, was unaware of this. Like, even at the time that it was out, I would ask my friends, hey, did you see the new Spider-Man? They're like, yeah, the Sam Raimi movie? The fucking Green Goblin looks like a villain from Beetleborgs. So even back then, even when it was airing on TV, not too many people seemed to know about it, at least in my social circle at the time. And even my friends who did watch around the time, that I do still talk to today, when bringing it back up, I had to really remind them about this strange little gem and what it brought to the table. They had next to no recollection of it. Oh, but not me. I still have vivid memories of its horrific early computer animation. And let me tell you now, the lore behind this one is strong. This is such a strange show. Not in terms of the content of the show, but in terms of what it is overall. It's hard to explain, but let me try. At first glance, these versions of the characters may look a little bit different, and yet still somehow somewhat familiar. That might be because the models they used were heavily based off the versions of the characters from the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book series. And that's because that's what the show was initially pitched as, an Ultimate Spider-Man series. And to my knowledge, I might be a little bit off, but I believe that it originally went into production as just that. However, with the success of the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, it was at last minute decided that instead, it would follow that movie's continuity. Meaning that despite the fact that the characters didn't even slightly resemble the characters from the Raimi film, and they looked a lot more accurate to other variations of the characters, we were supposed to believe that this took place after the events of Spider-Man 1. So I guess they expected us in our own minds to go, oh hey, it's Harry, I guess he dyed his hair blonde now. Oh hey, it's MJ, I guess she's vaguely goth now. Oh hey, it's Peter, I guess he's into tight shirts now? And before you ask, no. This in no way, shape, or form can be connected to any of the other Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Hell, it doesn't even really connect into the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. It seems like a totally different thing. There are vague connections here and there, what with Harry's father being dead and hating Spider-Man for it. Many references to that upside-down kiss, and things of that sort. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man films chose to rightfully so completely ignore this abomination in favor of just telling their own stories. So if you tried to somehow fit this into that canon of the original Spider-Man trilogy, you'd just be giving yourself a headache. And really, if you wanted to do that, you could just instead choose to click on one of my videos and hear me rant about something that I probably shouldn't have that much stake in as a 28-year-old man. If the characters' appearances and portrayals weren't hard enough to try to fit into the universe that Sam Raimi was creating, this show was also significantly darker than the movie it semi-spun off from. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is beyond campy, sometimes even being compared to the Power Rangers show. And if I'm being entirely honest, it's both what I love about those movies and also what I somewhat hate about those movies. But overall, it's its own thing. The content clearly doesn't take itself too seriously. That was not the case for this Spider-Man show. This show is a serious contrast from that. There's definitely a much darker tone here than in its parent material. There's references to people doing the sex, as the kids say. There's a whole lot of murder. I mean, you got people getting bruised, bloodied, electrocuted, decapitated. The show just has it all. Definitely a far cry from Pizza Time. Oh, but hey, if that's not even crazy enough for you, if you're sitting there shrugging your shoulders, let me announce now that that's not the only superhero film this series is connected to. Because later on in its first season, who else but Kingpin appears? And he's voiced by none other than Michael Clark Duncan. the very man who portrayed him in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. Which is something, I don't know, that really popped me as a kid.
Nice of you to drop by.
Not a problem. Will I be fighting any of your henchmen, or did you already eat them?
Let's show him what he's made of.
I liked both franchises at the time, so hearing that voice come out of that character was a mark-out moment. This was the closest thing to a superhero cinematic universe that I had as a kid. And I was all over this shit. I also gotta say, combining the images of the Kingpin from the movie and the Kingpin from the comic book, it's a nice touch. I personally really appreciate it. It kind of reminds me of the time that the Flintstones movie was coming out, and they started selling toys that kind of looked both like the cartoon characters and like their live-action counterparts. I like it. I'm a fan. They even throw in a little X-Men reference at one point, possibly hinting that this connects to that universe as well. So I just want to recap before I go any further. This was a Spider-Man series with the appearance of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, following the continuity of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, and it was also linked to Daredevil and possibly in cahoots with the Fox X-Men movies. And I don't know about you, but that's... My mind's already blown. That's fucking insane. Especially for that time period. We're talking about a show that was released in 2003. That is a lot more ambitious than a lot of other superhero projects that came out around this time. In addition to Michael Clark Duncan, the rest of the voice cast was pretty phenomenal. Neil Patrick Harris, Barney Stinson himself gave what I think may just be one of the most underrated Spider-Man performances of all time. He has the perfect casual yet completely sarcastic tone to his voice to really make a character like this work. It's no wonder he went on to play the character again in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Lisa Loeb does a pretty good job as Mary Jane. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and praise her work like it's the most amazing thing, but it's pretty damn good. Ian Ziering, whatever his name is, better known as the Blue Devil from Swamp Thing, did a good job of making Harry an absolutely unlikable dick, and that's not even me talking shit. That is who the character is. Though again, these performances are so night and day different from the actors who portrayed them in the movies that it's really a stretch of the imagination to think of them as the same exact characters, rather than a new interpretation of them. The guest talent they had on the show was also really remarkable. Kathy Griffin and Jeremy Piven play a weird brother and sister duo who have Professor X levels of mind control. The guy who played Stan in that Eminem music video plays Flash Thompson. Eve plays a Black Cat-inspired character. Not very well, though, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know why. I actually like her on her own show. The show that was named Eve, even though her character wasn't named Eve. I'm not going to get into that, because then I'm going to... This whole thing's going to be thrown off course. I liked her in that. Here, I don't know why. Maybe it's because she was relatively new to voice acting. But her line delivery comes off as very amateurish. And it's really noticeable. The dude from Can't Hardly Wait plays Electro. Worf from Star Trek plays Kraven the Hunter. Pretty well, actually. Stan Lee even shows up to voice a character because of course he does. He's Stan Lee. And Rob freaking Zombie plays the Lizard. Other recognizable voices in less prominent roles are Keith David, Clancy Brown, Cree Summers, Tara Strong, Jeff Fisher, Ed Asner, James Marsters, Jeffrey Combs, Dr. Cox. The list goes on. With such talent in the ranks, it's genuinely surprising to me that more people aren't at the very least aware of this show's existence. The show also included the likes of Silver Sable. I don't really know what else to say about that other than she was there. I was surprised. Not a lot of continuities mention that character. However, there were some characters who were intentionally excluded, such as Aunt May. Because, and again, no joke here, Aunt May was intentionally excluded from the series because MTV higher-ups felt that the simple sight of an elderly person would be enough to turn viewers off of the series altogether. No joke. They even downplayed J. Jonah Jameson's role in the show for the very same concern. Yeah, you tell him, MTV, old people suck! There are also other exported characters, meaning characters based on characters from the source material but slightly tweaked to fit better in this continuity. So while the show didn't give us Black Cat, we instead got Talon, who is basically just Black Cat. She's an attractive thief who gets under Spidey's webs. And since we didn't get Rocket Racer, we got Turbojet, who is Rocket Racer, just with a name that doesn't sound like something out of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Peter also dates a girl named Indy, who is apparently an amalgamation of love interest Betty Brant and Gwen Stacy. Kinda like the Betty Brant in the new Spider-Man movies, and how she's an amalgamation of Betty Brant and Gwen Stacy. I actually remember really liking this character, and I was somewhat let down when realizing that she only existed in this brief continuity. Bring Indy into the comics, you cowards! She's mostly around to serve as a foil to Peter and Mary Jane's non-relationship.
There's no 2-for-1 special, Petey.
There isn't?
No!
The animation was cutting edge for the time. Many praised its shaded style, managing to look like a computer-animated moving comic book. Keep in mind that the show was aired in 2003, meaning it was made in late 2002. So this was pretty damn well animated. I know I made a joke at the beginning, but for its time, this is really good. The 3D was rendered to look like your standard cell animation, and it gave the show its own unique identity. Though, again, in hindsight, it can be a little bit jarring at times. But I'll tell you what, the animation here definitely a lot better than the animation from the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. That genuinely hurt my eyes as a child. Though when using this style, there were some limitations that came with it. It was originally planned that Peter Parker would wear baggier clothing to hide his spider-like physique, but ultimately it had to be scrapped because it would require a lot more unnecessary work of the animators. Kraven's usual iconic lion mane vest was changed to that of a leather jacket, because otherwise the fur would pass through Kraven's body. Likewise, Mary Jane's hair was shortened for similar reasons. But enough with all that boring shit. Like I said before, trying to fit the show into its source continuity is next to impossible. The main characters look absolutely nothing like the original actors. The main characters sound nothing like the original actors. The main characters act nothing like their original actors. Dr. Connors becomes the Lizard and dies in the very same episode of the show, whereas he was only shown as Dr. Connors and teased as being the Lizard in the movies. The show takes place with everyone attending a university following high school. Yet after all this time, Peter and MJ still aren't an item and never have been. I mean, they hardly get past flirting in the show. Harry is still grieving his father's death as if it only just recently happened, and Harry and Peter are still living together like they did in the first movie, and this was not only not the case by the time the second movie came out, Harry was given his father's place and Peter was living on his own, but midway through the second movie, they became complete rivals, so this is just impossible. Harry's also oblivious to the fact that his friend is Spider-Man, which again, halfway through the second movie, he knew. The Peter Parker in this show is a lot more confident, quick-witted, and even snarkier in comparison to Tobey Maguire's whininess. Mary Jane, years later, is still waiting for Peter Parker to make the first move. There's so many more examples I could give you, but really, I think you get the point here. The show was obviously made to cash in on Sam Raimi's first installment, but didn't really take into account that there would be more installments in the Sam Raimi series. Which I guess is fine enough considering there were no more installments for this series following its first season, because after the first 13 episodes, it was cancelled, also leaving it on a complete cliffhanger and a downer of an ending. I don't want to give too much away here because I do intend on making another video about this in the future, maybe where I could get more in depth with the story of the show, but essentially the show ends with Peter Parker's girlfriend going into a coma, everybody vilifying Spider-Man, and him allowing the Spidey suit to sink in an ocean. So yeah, kind of a bummer. The show's director has since stated that if the show would have went on for another season, obviously all of this would have been resolved. He's also stated that Season 2 would see a lot more of Kraven the Hunter, possibly alluding to him being the big bad of that season. And it would have also introduced the audiences to villains like Mysterio and the Vulture. Like I said before, I don't actually want to sit down and talk about the story of the show just yet. Right now, I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of the backstory and also let you know that the show exists, because a lot of you probably didn't even know. And I only know because I'm a complete loser and these are the things my mind chooses to remember. So contributing Degenerates, let me know in the comments section below if that might be something you'd be interested in. With that being said, that's all for today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I'm the Clown Prince of Crime, and that was the Prince of Personality, the Infuso, or so he says. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the man on Twitter, because it's not stalking if it's on the internet after all. Join the fun by joining the Discord. If for some strange reason you want to show support, and I don't know why you would, and if you have $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, where you can request videos, get exclusive content, and early access to scheduled videos. Or head to his PayPal, where you can buy the shirts. Oh, aren't those lovely? And just remember, if you're not tuning in, you're missing out. Yeah. Ah!